On tonight's Next Time Try This segment, I want to talk to you about how to drill a hole the proper size when you are looking to thread it or tap it, okay? One thing you want to keep in mind, you should get a chart like the one that's visible here in the slide. It gives you all the details of what size drill bit you should use depending on what size tap you're going to use. For this display right here tonight, I'm just going to show you what I did to get an 8mm hole into a little plate like this. You might want to do this if you were making a part out of aluminum especially, and you want to get the hole the right size. Two things to keep in mind. Number one, your tap is tapered on the end. When you drill your hole, you want to make sure the first 3 or 4 teeth that are on that tap will go into that hole. If they're not going to go in comfortably, you're going to have a heck of a time spinning that tap around in order to make that hole. You may have to make the hole a little bit bigger. This is why your chart is going to be very, very helpful to you when you go to determine what size drill you're going to use. The other important part is it's got to be level. When you put that tap with your handle into that piece of work, whatever it is you might be working on, you want to make sure it's level so your threads get straight. Let's go over and we'll take a look at the tape. We'll show you a little bit more about what I'm talking about. Whatever the part is that you might be working on, we're just going to use this little aluminum plate here as an example, but you might be working on something for a chain guide, whatever it might be. You've determined that you want to use a bolt this size. Now, you want to measure the bolt, and in this case, it happens to be 8mm. Okay, I think you can see that there, 8mm. After you determine that it's an 8mm bolt that you want to use, you're going to have to know exactly what the thread pitch is. With a little thread pitch gauge like this, you can go on here on your bolt, and it tells you that it's a 1.25 thread pitch. So now we've determined it's an 8mm bolt with a 1.25 thread pitch. The next thing you're going to have, of course, is the correct tap. This is an 8mm by 125 tap. It's got a little handle, and you could buy them inexpensively at a local tool supply place. If you're not really a machinist and you just need to get something quick, you can buy one at like a Harbor Freight or something like that. Now, we've determined that the bolt is an 8mm, and let's just say that we want to make our hole, oh, I don't know, somewhere in there. A good idea is to have a spring-loaded prick punch just like this, spring-loaded punch. It's great to have around, really gives you an accurate mark for where you're going to be drilling your hole. I would strongly suggest you don't start off with the bit that you're going to be used for your final drilling. Start off with something smaller, something like this. Make yourself a pilot hole. There's a better chance that you're going to get it in there straight when you have it in your drill as opposed to getting it on an angle. So start off with a pilot hole like that, and then gradually or directly go up to the size of the drill you're going to use. And while I'm at that point, what I have learned is that you want to use a drill that is 1.5mm smaller, 1.5mm smaller than the 8mm hole that you're going to want to make. In this case, I did find that my drill that I'm going to be using is, well, it's just about 6.68. It's a little over what I want to use. I usually use something about 1.5 millimeters smaller than the actual tap, but 6.65, that's certainly close enough for what we're going to be doing here today. The whole purpose, of course, is to make sure that you cut your hole big enough to where your tap is going to go in enough, but you want to make it so that you have a good deep thread to grab your bolt on. Okay, so let's start drilling our pilot hole first. And of course, you want to remember to keep the drill straight. You don't want to go on an angle. Take a look at it from the side. Go in as straight as possible when you're drilling your pilot hole. Okay, now we're going to go up to our next size bit. I've used 2 drills for this just to save a little time. Now I'm going to remount this in the vise so it's nice and square and flat. 2 things you're going to want to have around with you when you do this is a little oil can like this. You're going to want to keep a little oil in that hole, or else it's always a good idea to put a little on your tap. Keep those flutes clean on your tap too. When you're doing this, you may have to stop a couple of times to back it out. Either way, You want to keep some oil on there and you want to keep it clean. Of course, the first thing you want to do is make sure that your tap is going in squarely. Okay, make sure the tap is going in squarely and with light pressure on both ends of the handle. Just start to push down, turn slowly, firmly, let the tap get a bite. And once you do, you can begin to turn a little bit faster, but after just 3 or 4 turns maybe, you want to back out a little bit, make sure the little chips are coming out. A little extra oil never hurts. You want to take your time when you do this. You don't want to break a tap off in the workpiece. Your day is going to get really ugly if that should happen. So take your time, go slowly, back off a turn or so every 2 turns, every 3 turns. And I'm almost all the way through. And another good idea is making sure you get all the chips out of there and that your threads are clean when you go to put the bolt in there. I like to use a little brake clean, just like this. And here's our 8 millimeter by 125 bolt from a little bit earlier. And there you have it. Another tip for you, one of the best things you could do, get a piece of metal, piece of aluminum, get some taps and practice. Get some drill bits, put it in your drill press, use a drill, keep everything straight, and practice before you go to do it on something that you're really, really particular about. So next time, try that.